This is always a good topic to feel smug over because the replies and quote tweets are saturated with people who literally think, quote, we should care about men's problems and offer them advice is a dog whistle for we should build a Fourth Reich, thus proving the problem.
Now, and I had no sympathy for Vaush here because he's part of the problem. You told me, Vaush, you and the leftists told me these are the most privileged people in society. You told me that society is bending over backwards, laying down hand over fist for these cis white males. How dare they feel sad? How dare they feel left behind?
There were some statistics by healthcare company Cigna indicating that men are the loneliest generation. In fact, 18 to 24-year-olds are lacking friends, intimate partners. They're feeling increasingly alienated from society.
Look, and they show a depressed woman. You gotta love Young Turks. Is the left out of touch with young men? Here, let's show a young woman who's depressed.
That's amazing. Look. Young Turks, what do you who is doing the graphics? They're so lazy. They couldn't when they went to istockimage.com, they couldn't type in like sad man. They just typed in sad and they just grabbed whatever the first one they could get.
Evidently so.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And when you look at statistics in regard to their education, whether or not they're working, more and more of this data reinforces
another woman, another sad woman. Okay.
Is that there is something awry.
What is
happening? And addressing it doesn't mean that you turn your back on issues pertaining to women, but it does mean that we should be focused on what it is in society that is leading to this epidemic, what the left can do to offer solutions, and how we can basically fight back against the more nefarious figures who have filled the void that men are struggling with, people like Jordan Peterson and what have you. Now, recently, Vaush, who's a popular streamer, had tweeted this thread that I think is really, really important to address. He writes, I cannot stress enough how important it is to understand that 12-year-old white boys on Twitch are not being pulled into fascism because of some Machiavellian desire to preserve and expand their privileges. It's because the right talks to them and the left doesn't. He continues to argue that leftists and progressives have absolutely no idea how unnecessarily repellent they come off to so many people, and they get angry at the idea of being a more effective social movement because they don't want to share their social spaces with people who might have gone another way. But the criticism for leftists continue, and to be honest, I agree with a lot of what Vaush says here. He says leftists will write master's theses on the effect of socioeconomic conditions on crime, and then shrug when 10 million more young men fall into fascism because their boy brains must just be innately fascist and they choose to be evil, and there's no way this could have been prevented.
So, okay, there's a lot of here to unpack. So first of all, I hate to say it, but I
what's happening?
Agree. Sorry, had to get that out. Agree with Vaush in the idea that yes, obviously there's not some, when guys, fall into rabbit holes, whether it's the far left or the far right, they're only concerned about the far right here, obviously, because they're on the left. But when a young male or woman falls into the far left or the far right rabbit hole and goes down some, politically destructive, socially destructive pathway, it's not, they don't have some, generally, I don't think, they don't have some Machiavellian idea in their head like, I'm going to become, a far right racist because I want to be, lord of all the brown people. Just as I don't think that like people that fall into the far left rabbit hole say, I'm going to destroy all the white people or, whatever the hell they're thinking. Like, that's not what's going on. That there are people that are unhappy with their lives, that are unhappy with society, and they have moral intuitions that lead them that predisposes them to being led in certain directions. And you have basically siren calls on both sides saying, hey, are you unhappy with society? Well, guess what? I have a solution that will fix all of that. And if you're predisposed, to have your moral foundations to the left or the right, whatever they're suggesting is going to sound like the kind of radical change that, hey, that this is going to, make things good for society. But the big problem here, and what I think what Vaush and the other leftists will always stumble by and always fuck up, is right where he says this. He says leftists will write their master's thesis on the effects of socioeconomic conditions on crime and then shrug when 10 million more young men fall to fascism because their boy brain just must be innately fascist. This is the root flaw with sort of the leftist collectivism, and why Vaush, despite what he's trying to argue for, can never actually materialize it. Because since the leftist socialist collectivist position is to destroy individualism and to associate and only look at things from a group level, that explains the inherent contradiction in this position that Vaush is noticing. Because when it comes to crime, they'll say, oh, there's all these disaffected poor people, right? Because they're viewing them in the lens of poor. So saying, oh, there's all these poor people. They're all disempowered. They're all being abused by the state. They're also viewing it from the perspective of they view police as inherently evil and any sort of policing as inherently evil. So they're already siding with, criminals for that extent. But then if you change the group and you say, well, we're not talking about people that are going up against the evil police. We're not talking about people that are poor. We're talking about men, and we're only talking about men and men's issues. What happens? Well, suddenly all that intersectionality, all that group identification of being poor, of being, oppressed by the police, that all dissipates.
You're right.
Because when you say men, you're contrasting men with women,
yeah.
Right? That's the immediate contrast that crops up in your mind. And so since they can only look at things through group levels, intersectionality be damned, they look at men and they say, oh, you mean the patriarchy? You mean the evil sexist men who want to, keep power for themselves? Why? Or it gets even worse. They say, why should I care if a bunch of white cis males, the most privileged of people in society, why should I care if they're unhappy? Why should I care if they're not getting jobs? You told me, Vaush, you and the leftists told me these are the most privileged people in society. You told me that society is bending over backwards, laying down hand over fist for these cis white males. How dare they feel sad? How dare they feel left behind?
Yeah. Wow.
And so they'll never have sympathy. Or empathy or anything, because they can only look at it and this is why this is so insane, because Vaush and their leftists have basically conditioned their audiences to not look at people as individuals, but to only look at them through their group lens. Why would they ever have any sympathy for a man in a quote unquote men's issues, especially if they're white and straight?
They're sexist pieces of shit. They don't care about men.
Of course. Unless
they're going to vote, Democrat in the next election. And then they're going to, ghost you. They're going to do the pump and dump. Ha ha, you voted Democrat.
And then the final tweet, because I want to make sure you guys get a full look at what he's thinking here. This is always a good topic to feel smug over, because the replies and quote tweets are saturated with people who literally think, quote, we should care about men's problems and offer them advice is a dog whistle for we should build a Fourth Reich, thus proving the problem.
Now, and I had no sympathy for Vaush here, because he's part of the problem. He's engaged in this exact same BS dog whistling behavior. This is why when Jordan Peterson would come out and he would say very innocuous things, okay, especially when he first came out. Now he's saying some, he's being intentionally incendiary nowadays, which, I'm not a huge fan of. But when he first came out, he'd be saying very innocuous things, about what people, not just even boys, but what people should be doing to help improve their lives and to seek self-improvement. And you had all these leftists, including Vaush, would come out and say, oh, he's the worst person ever. He's a Nazi. He's an evil person. He said that people should care about young boys. Oh, what a sexist, piece of shit.
Yeah.
And where
what
was
about girls?
Where was Vaush then? Where was the defense of like, well, guys, why are we attacking Jordan Peterson? He's not saying anything that's that bad. Where was the defense then? But suddenly when Vaush is attacked, oh my God. Why is the left behaving in such a fashion? Shock, surprise.
Yeah. Well, that's what they do. They build up, you know, negative stereotypes of people, and they just hit them over the head with them over and over again.
Right. And they create these mental traps, these mental prisons of thought, and then act surprised when they fall right into them.
Yeah.
Now, joining us today to talk about this is the man behind the Twitter thread, Vaush. And I want to thank you, Vaush, for taking some time to talk to us about this today.
Oh, it's an absolute delight. Don't mind the cam, by the way. Like young men, my camera encoder is alienated, just in this case from Skype. It's a pleasure to talk with you about this.
So this is something that I've been thinking about a lot because I've been just noticing.
You can tell Vaush has his suck-up voice since he's on Young Turks.
I know. It's very true. We heard his non-suck-up voice before in the other video when he was yelling at his chat. Because they were like, oh, Vaush, you know, maybe I shouldn't let my girlfriend sleep with other dudes.
There was in that clip we were watching, there was someone in the chat that said, progressivism is when you let your women have sex with other men.
Yeah.
So even his audience was like, it's funny. Even most leftists,
they understand. They totally do.
They can't get over the moral intuitions of jealousy that strongly. They're like, I don't know about this one.
Yeah, that means it's working. The human species will be will be sustained another generation.
Well, no, listen, the human species is going to die out because we're all going to have AI boyfriends and girlfriends. So,
and your AI will be completely loyal to you.
Of course.
Look, sooner or later, people are going to want to have a real relationship with a human being. They're going to be like, oh, this robot is just sucking up to me.
I mean, will they though?
Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Ana show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.